Hi all, great to be here to have a conversation about people, capability, culture, leadership, and wanted to kick off by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands that we're meeting on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and on behalf of the panel here this morning, acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. My great pleasure, as I said, to lead a conversation about how we build a diverse, future-skilled and capable workforce in the sector. And my great pleasure to introduce two amazing people. So Nevinia Davenport, who is the Group Manager Diversity and Inclusion for the Thiess Group, and Ashley Potter, a star of IMARC, who's our very proud to say our President of the Sydney Student Chapter of AusIMM, and currently doing an internship at Evolution Mining. So Ash will be able to provide a first-hand perspective of the experience of an intern in our industry. As introduced, I'm the CEO of AusIMM, which is the peak body for professionals in the mining industry. Really passionate about this area of people capability because we are the organisation that represents the professionals who work in the mining industry. A stat that you may be interested to know is that of the 1 million Australians who are employed by or through our industry, 30% of the workforce are tertiary qualified professionals. We think that speaks to the important role that those professionals have in shaping a better future for our industry. And we operate at AusIMM under a royal charter. So we see that community of professionals coming together to ultimately build a better future for our industry, but to make sure that the work that we represent, the members that we represent, delivers community value. It's a very unique and privileged position in this country. It's a public interest test, so a very important role that we play and are a founding partner of IMARC. I might start, Nev, with yourself just by asking you to tell us a little bit about Thiess Group and your role, if you could share that to open the batting. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Stephen. It's lovely to be here with you, Ashley and Stephen. I am Group Manager for Diversity and Inclusion. That also includes our role in terms of social impact and how we work with our communities across our regions. Thiess is a global contract service provider, one of the largest in the world. We have operations in Australia, Asia and the Americas regions. We offer services across technical services, open and underground mining, and also civil, and infrastructure. We have 15,000 people in our workforce globally, and the issue of diversity and future skills is really critical for our organisation. So looking forward to the conversation.
Just to build that out a little bit, Neb, so that's different or complementary to the kind of people and culture function that sits within the Thiess Group?
Yeah, it's a good question. So D&I and the way that we operate with communities is integrated in all that we do. So it is a part of people and culture, but also it's around the way we operate as well.
Great. Ash, great to see you. Another panel for you, and just was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your roles and also just your perspective on this conversation today, if you could kind of share that, if you could.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to be here. A little bit of background about me. I grew up in Sydney. I had no exposure to mining, hadn't even heard about mining as a career pathway until I started university, and I sort of stumbled into it and haven't looked back. So I'm entering my final year of university at the University of New South Wales, studying mining engineering. And I'm also the president of the AusIMM Sydney Student Chapter. So I'm really passionate about helping connect students to the industry. And I really do feel like there is a little bit of disconnect between the academia side of things and moving into industry. So that's something that I've really been passionate about. But yeah, I truly don't think that there's an industry that has a greater focus on uplifting and developing its young people. So I'm really excited to be here today and talk about that.
How did, a question I've never asked you, but how did you, when you say you stumbled into mining, tell us how did you stumble into mining?
I knew I wanted to go into engineering. I was very maths and physics focused, and I had a friend a couple of years above me in high school who reached out to me and convinced me into it. I really wanted a job where there were lots of travel opportunities, very hands-on, not having to sit behind a desk all day. So mining seemed like the perfect fit, and yeah, loved it.
Excellent. Our conversation today we're going to handle in two parts. The first part is very much around the capability and what that future skills mix is going to look like. And then I hope you agree that logically kind of moves into a conversation about culture and leadership and people. So I might start with yourself, Nev, by telling us a little bit about how you see the industry's future mix, skills mix that are shaping up. And I'm personally quite fascinated by this idea of kind of the specialist role and the generalist role, especially at AusIMM, because we, kind of our grassroots membership are geologists, metallurgists, mining engineers. I'd be interested to see if you kind of see those roles expanding and becoming more generalist roles or more specialist roles in the future.
Yeah, so I think you rightly pointed out, 30% of our workforce in Australia are specialists in some form. And I don't think we can get away from that. We're going to need specialists and we'll need to continue to. I think what will happen is that we'll see the skill sets that they have need to be re-engineered or enhanced, redesigned, and they'll need to learn new skills. And in that sense, become generalists as well. So we're going to need specialists, but we also need our generalists. The skill sets that I think we will need to see more and more evolving as we move through our technological and digital advancements as an industry is around having really strong data and digital competency. And that's across multiple roles. It's not just in the typical sense of technical roles, it's across every discipline. Even in my own, I find myself looking at data more than I do. It's a key driver in enabling change within our organisation as far as diversity is concerned. So it's really critical to be able to grow those skill sets. I think we, as an industry, we've done a really great job of building that technical capability, but now we need to shift towards focusing on people and cultural skill sets for our leaders as well. Probably something that we have not done a great job of as an industry over the past few decades, and something we need to invest in our leaders to build their competence in leading people and a diverse group of people, because as we expand our future skills will expand. We'll need to tap into other industries, into a more diverse workforce that will require our leaders to have a different type of leadership style. We need to be able to provide them with an opportunity to be agile in their approach to leadership. As things shift, we'll see a greater rate of change with technological advancements, and being prepared to have a level of empowerment and be a little less risk adverse than what we are as an industry is a critical driver to that. And so our leaders need to trust in their specialists, but also lean into new skill sets. I think complex stakeholder analysis and engagement is going to be another critical part of the skills that we'll see into the future. As we see people move away from sitting behind trucks or working in assets where they're able to actually engage with multiple stakeholders across the organisation or the industry, internally and externally, is going to be really important. Strategic planning and ability to manage change. Those skills are going to be needed across a full gamut of roles. It's not just going to be in what is traditionally strategic roles. We all will need those skills. And I'm not sure that we're teaching that at an academic level just yet. And it's certainly an area we need to continue to develop for our leaders of today. We need to invest in that now so that we're capable and ready for the future.
Yeah, great insights. And Ash, maybe a response from you around that. You're on an internship program in a mining company. There's other intern programs that you've been a part of. What are some of the skills that you're seeing in demand from those employers as you start to kind of hit the workforce?
I think there's definitely a demand for students that are very different to maybe how leaders were in the past. I think it's constantly a changing industry. So students that are adaptable, that they're critical thinkers, able to collaborate and have those really strong teamwork skills is really important. And that's something that really isn't addressed at university. It's very much route learning. University is very good at producing academics, but not very good at producing future-ready graduates into industry. I think that's something that there's definitely a lag behind in. I think my experience in, as an intern in an industry is very much all the skills that I've learned have been on the job. And I would say, those skills, people management skills, working across a collaborative team, across different disciplines, all those things I've learned through industry and not through university.
It's a good question. I might kind of pick it up with Neb yourself. So if I kind of took an example of Thiess as an employer, of say the next 100 people that Thiess employs, will you be looking to get established professionals as a part of that mix in addition to interns that you, or graduates that you're trying to bring into the industry? Kind of what does that mix look like from a Thiess point of view?
Yeah, I think Thiess is heavily invested into building our pipeline. So we have scholarships, internship programs, similar to the one that Ashley's participating in, and graduate programs across all of our operating regions. And we recognise that critical need to have that future workforce coming through. But equally, we need to be mindful of the ageing workforce that we have that have a significant amount of experience and technical knowledge that will be lost when you consider the rate in which we're losing enrolments in traditional mining disciplines at university. We really need to leverage and lean into our established and mature workforce that can bring that technical knowledge and mentor and bring some of those traditional skills through. And equally, the younger generation can do some work in terms of mentoring our older workforce around what it means to work with a more diverse workforce that expects different things from our industry. They expect a different type of culture. They expect to come to an industry and an organisation that develops them and leans into a learning journey that is long-term and not just transactional. Ashley wants to be able to grow and learn, as do all new members of our industry, and we have to rely on our skilled workforce to do that, but they need new skills to be able to bring these younger generations through and to build those future skill sets sustainably. I think we run the risk of not having, if we're not strategic in the way that we're planning our workforce in terms of those skill sets and where we're going to find them. It's not the traditional mining disciplines necessarily. We will need to look at different industries to bring in the talent and the skill sets that we need. And we'll also need to ensure that we have a workforce shortage issue in Australia, and that's not going away. So we need to think differently about the way in which we strategically plan for the development of our workforce, and that's looking at a more diverse candidate pool. There's going to be different skills that leaders will need to bring to develop those and get the most out of that skill set as well.
Maybe we can explore a little bit more about that kind of supply-demand curve. Is it really difficult for Thiess at the moment to find and recruit people into your business and into our industry? Is it like, I guess the blunt question, is it as an employer's market or an employee's market, the way you kind of see things at the moment? Yep.
I think it's shifting. There's a change that's happening currently, but it has been challenging, particularly over the past 2 to 3 years, to build that pipeline and bring talent in. We're having to invest heavily in training, and part of and training and building up our own workforce to meet the shortage gaps. But part of the challenge in that is that we're reactive. We're meeting the needs of today rather than focusing on the future needs. But I do think it's changing. We're seeing a shift in the market, and what has been an employee-driven market is turning into an employer one. So the opportunity there is to focus on that strategic workforce mapping and planning to set us up for when the market shifts again and we've got the right skills.
And is that in your role? Is that like a very sophisticated strategic exercise, or is that a little bit more kind of organic and opportunistic, that kind of mapping out of that future capability?
Ideally, it's strategic, right? You want it to be strategic. I think sometimes we as an industry contract and expand with market influencing factors, and that prevents us from being strategic and a longer term view. But the risk that we run is if we continue to operate in that way, then we're going to continue to be reactive and not meet the needs. And part of the challenge for us as an industry, particularly in Australia, is we will lose our market competitiveness, right? That edge that we provide. Why would our investors and clients purchase from Australia if they could go elsewhere and get the skills from elsewhere?
Ash, what are you seeing from your perspective? Probably less interested I'm interested in your personal story, but your friends, the people you're studying with, are they, for instance, finding they're in demand? There's lots of choices they've got in terms of roles that they're looking at doing?
I think very much so, because there's such a skill shortage in the industry. The advantage of that for me and my peers is that there is a lot of choice in terms of graduate programs, and I think as a result of that, I would say students are now more selective about what they want in a grad program, and more are moving towards companies that align with their own personal values. So I think it's really pushing the industry to move a little bit faster and evolve to meet those needs, because students really value companies that think that diversity and inclusion is important and value sustainability and really look after their people. And I think that that's a big driving factor in what students look for in graduate programs when they've got that choice.
And are people in other disciplines, like, for instance, science graduates that aren't doing mining undergraduate programs, looking or considering the mining industry as an option to come and work in?
I would say largely not. I very much see it as you've got people that have been exposed to the mining industry, so largely your mining engineering students that really see all of the opportunities that are available and are taking advantage of that. But even in resource-related degrees like mechanical engineering or geology or environmental science, a lot of those students that I talk to at university are actually got a very negative perception of the industry. I think largely just driven by a lack of awareness or ignorance about the opportunities and about how important the industry is for that energy transition. So yeah, I've very much found that I have to actually convince people into why they should be interested in a career in mining, and a lot of the work I do is talking to people about that. Yeah,
I think it's a massive challenge. I'm sure I see a very international audience here. I'm sure it's a similar story in other countries, but in Australia, just to throw some numbers at you, there's this year 70,000 STEM graduates. Of that number, 13,000 will graduate in engineering, and of that number, 400 will come and work in the mining industry. So we at AusIMM see a massive opportunity to educate and inform STEM graduates about what a career looks like in our industry. And we're about to kick off a significant pilot program together with BHP, Rio and Peabody, whereby we're going to induct or educate first-year STEM graduates about what a career in the mining industry looks like. So the program's called MyX. Watch this space. We're going to pilot it in a couple of cities in January this year, or next year. So we're looking forward to that. I might explore this kind of concept of leadership, culture, and Nev, maybe from your point of view, just to unpack a little bit further this evolving skill set as you see it in terms of the professional being a thought leader, and a community of professionals that are really able to shape a different cultural setting for our industry that I think is broadly accepted as needing to change over the coming decades, both in terms of the automation, the technology we're going to need to drive productivity and efficiency, but also to make sure that our industry is recognised as being a great place to work, which it's not necessarily seen by everyone as being. Maybe just to kind of unpack that kind of leadership journey that you see evolving over the coming years.
Yeah, thanks. I think we're very much focused on technical skills in our leaders. So most of our, here at almost in every person I've speak to in the industry says the same thing. Most of our leaders have been promoted and moved through the ranks as a result of their technical skill sets and their rather than their people leadership skills. That has to change, and it's not something that changes over time. It needs to change now. It's a critical issue for our industry today, not in 10 years' time. And we've seen, the impacts of not having that through recent events here in Australia and overseas in relation to inquiries on sexual harassment and bullying, discrimination. That comes about for a number of different reasons, but one of the key drivers is that our leaders aren't equipped to better manage the work environment and the acceptable behaviours. So creating, and Ashley spoke very well around what her expectations and her generation's expectations are of the industry they want to work in. We need to have better behaviours. We need to operate in a different way and create a workplace culture where people feel that they can belong, be safe, not just physically safe, but psychologically safe, and have a opportunity to have lifelong learning and be empowered to make change and be innovative. And our leaders, and I'm speaking very generally here, I think there are some amazing leaders I work with in my own business at Thiess and have met in my time working in the industry. But it's, there is definitely a gap in leadership capability and competence when it comes to what is appropriate leadership for a diverse workforce. And I think that's a fix it now. And it's about building trust. It's about creating a sense of belonging. And I think inherently most of our leaders want to be good at being leaders. They want to get the most out of their people, but they're just not sure how to do it. So I think a critical part of our investment into future skills training, or today skills training, is to focus on leadership behaviours in addition to technical skill sets.
So if Thiess was recruiting tomorrow a senior executive to provide that thought leadership and to really role model the right behaviour, what are the 2 or 3 skills, values or styles that you would be looking for as in that executive leadership style role?
Yeah, I think modelling is key. It's doing. It's the way in which they build their leadership teams. It's one thing to talk to a strategy. It's another to actually drive and lead that strategy as an executive within the organisation. So you can't just sign off on a strategy document as an executive. You have to drive it. You have to own it. It's got to be your strategy. You have all the people in the world that can support you in developing and guiding you in what that strategy should be. But unless it's driven by the most senior leaders of the organisation, you won't see change. So I think evidence in action would be, and a genuine plan and intent around how they're going to drive an inclusive workplace where people can thrive.
Yeah, and growth mindset is kind of what I'm taking out of that as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Industry perspective, kind of just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think, an opportunity to, I think any leader that comes to the role as an executive will grow by leaning in on the people who are the experts, those that they hire to be their specialists. So if we come back to that discussion around specialists versus generalists, our executives need to be generalists. They need to be across a number of different elements of our industry, but they need to lean on their specialists, the people they hire to lead and guide their work, to do that effectively and give them the right advice. I think by doing that, they empower and create agility and a more responsive workforce as well to the shifting changes that this digital and technological change is bringing about in our industry.
We've all heard, question to Ash, we've all heard that kind of anecdote about how younger people these days, it's about them interviewing us when they're looking for a job. So my question to Ash is, what qualities are you looking for in a leader and leadership in the companies that you want to work in?
I think one of the big ones is companies that are willing to listen. Companies that are very people focused is a big one for me. I don't want to just be a number. I've often probably shied away from larger companies because I think in a smaller team or a more lean team, you get that opportunity for growth. You get to wear more hats. You get to learn more things. So I think that's a big one for me. I think leaders that are willing to take on feedback, where it's sort of a two-way forum, is a big one as well.
So an environment where you're going to grow and develop professionally. How important are the company values for a job or an organisation that you'd be looking to work in?
For me, very important. Yeah, it's one of the first things that I look at. Or one of the things that I will often do is go and actually talk to someone that I know that works in the company and say, what's your experience of the culture in the company? Because often there is a disconnect between, at an executive level, what their values are and how things are on site. So I think that's a big one for me, trying to get a feel for the culture of a company. Probably one of the biggest things that I look for beyond anything else.
And how well, it's kind of a bit of a Dorothy Dixer, but how well do you think your education and the course that you're studying is preparing you in terms of this future career journey you're embarking on now, particularly around those teamwork leadership skills? Is it kind of giving you what you need, or are you looking for the company to develop those skills for you?
I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I very much think that there is a huge disconnect. I think a lot of the skills that I've learnt that make me employable, I've learnt on site in industry. I think you can be, and I've seen this, I've seen incredibly smart, incredibly technical people that I work with amongst my peers at university, but they can't explain a complex concept to someone on site. And that's a big downfall. You need to be able to explain something technical to someone that perhaps doesn't have a technical background and be able to communicate your ideas. I think that's the most important thing in being future ready.
So communication and development of those communication skills is probably a massive gap from an education point of view, you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that what you see, Nev, when kind of you're seeing people join our industry?
I think so. I think it just adds, Ashley's points really add weight to the argument that we as an industry have a role to play in providing those skills. And, you know, got challenged, do all of our leaders have those skills right now? Probably, I would argue, no. And so we need to invest not just in our upcoming generations, but our existing people to further develop those skills. Super important that we not just focus on, you know, compliance and technical skill sets, but building future generations, but our existing cohort as well.
Thanks. I think that's a really nice spot to start to close out the conversation today. I think those development of those broader skills, leadership, teamwork, communication, especially for technical specialists, is going to be paramount, and especially recognising there's this massive gap between the demand that the industry has for all these technical professionals and the numbers coming through the university system. And as you said, those skills are in demand by other industries. You know, I'm an engineer. I worked in a bank for many years because banks are really good at recruiting people that have got those analytical skills. So as we come back to the question, how do we build a diverse, future skilled and capable workforce in the sector? Nev, have you got any parting advice for the audience here? What would be kind of your main insight or reflection out of the conversation today?
I think it's twofold. I think it's about focusing on reshaping, enhancing the skills of our current industry employees and create value for them to stay in the industry, I think is very important. And then making sure that we're looking at how we bring in new talent, new skills from other industries, focus less on experience and more on skill sets that are transferable and adaptable to meet the needs of what's coming in the future.
Are there other industries that you look at that you think are doing this well or that we could learn from?
I think there's a multiple that have been successful in doing that. I think in the construction industry in particular, they've had to evolve and bring in different skill sets to meet some of the growing community expectations around them operating differently, but also their own technological advancements. I think the banking sector is also another that brings in a lot of data analysts and, you know, shifting people from front-facing to having more of a digital role or sales role with commercial clients. So I think there's been some evolution in the banking sector as well, driven about by technological advancements.
Probably all the engineers are recruited.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a great international story also, just to sort of park with the audience, and that is the renaissance of manufacturing in Germany through the Industry 4.0 movement, and how it's been driven by a very different workforce, and that's brought a lot of that manufacturing back into Germany and the US through that kind of new type of workforce. And Ash, your parting comments, is there any key takeaway that you'd like to leave with the audience today around this whole area of capability and culture?
I think just how important it is to equip young people with those skills and trying to bridge the gap between academia and the industry. I think for me also, having had a little bit of exposure to industry, perhaps my one piece of advice more for the students in the room is just how willing senior professionals are to help and develop young people if you're willing to ask. I've very much found that that's the case. I've always been amazed at how how much effort there is in the industry to uplift young people. So yeah, that would be my big piece of advice. Take a hold of every opportunity you get, say yes, ask for help, and really leverage opportunities like IMARC to build your network and build those skills.
Great advice. Thank you to you, the audience, for being a part of that conversation today and for your obvious attention. And if I could ask you to please put your hands together and say a massive thank you to Nevinia Davenport and Ashley Potter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.